In YouTube, I have kind of a different presentation for you today, kind of a different video. Today I'm going to be talking about how we need to reject modernity and embrace monkey. About a year ago, I got on an Apple kick, and dude, I went through like 4 or 5 different Apple phones, and I realized they were all kind of busted. There's always something wrong with them that makes it evident that you don't have the latest and greatest iPhone. So Apple is a wonderful hardware company. They're an advertising company as well, so a lot of people don't realize this, but we can kind of circle back around, and maybe I'll enlighten you today on how Apple makes its advertising dollars. But about a year ago, I got on an Apple kick, and I went through a few different phones. I tried all the different AirPods and the watches and all this shit. And I hit a point of frustration with it where I realized that I was giving agency over my life to other people. What do I mean by that? So when you buy a product that doesn't allow you to use it how you want to use it, who says that you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can do what we approve you to do, then you are paying someone a product. If you're paying someone money for a product that's not truly yours. It's not yours, dude. If you can't change shit, if you can't alter stuff, if you can't modify it, then it's not fucking yours. You're renting it. It belongs to somebody else. So I hit a point of frustration with it where, the walled garden I kind of realized was not for me. So I ended up moving back to Android. And when I moved back to Android, I gave away all my Apple gear. And I said, okay, so I replaced my smartwatch. I had an Apple Watch 10, I think, one of the newest ones. I said, okay, so I'm going back to Android. I want to move back to, I'm going to move to like an Android smartwatch. So I bought a Garmin Square V2, I think. And I was pretty happy with it. It tracked, you guys heard me talk about it. It tracked notifications, it tracked sleep, it tracked heart rate. And I realized that after using it for a few weeks and being happy with it, I realized that all of this shit doesn't matter. I don't fucking care. Like, for notifications, if somebody needs to get a hold of me, they'll call me. So if I don't have my phone on me, like immediately present in my view, and they call me, I'm going to hear it. If they text me, it wasn't that important. So I'll get to it whenever I get to my phone. So it's not that important to have notifications. Who fucking cares? If it's a call, you're going to hear it. And if it's a text, if you don't hear it, it wasn't that important. They know that there might be a delay in response. You don't have to be constantly available for people. And for the heart rate monitor, that takes me a minute. I hold my finger to my neck. I count my pulses while my watch ticks to 30 or 60. And then if it's at 30, I multiply it times 2. And if I just run it up to 60, then I've counted the amount that it's beating. And I go, okay, that's my heart rate. Okay. For sleep, I don't really want it tracking my sleep, right? The things that we feed into our body, the information that we feed into our body has an influence on the way that we conduct ourselves. So if you're having something tell you, you got this much sleep, this is how you'll perform today, even if it's bullshit, you'll still believe it and you'll still implement it. Because that's how the human body works, right? That's how the human brain works. So it's called the Rosenthal effect. So if I tell you you're a certain way, and I tell you over and over and over again, and I feed this information into you, then eventually, whether you realize it or not, you will start conducting yourself that way and you will turn into that person. So it's a simplified version of the Rosenthal effect, but it's not something that is necessary to my life. It's a convenience, and it's something neat, and it's an optimization thing, but it's not a necessary optimization thing. And one thing that I've noticed over the course of my life is that when you start optimizing for things that don't need to be optimized, you just break shit, right? When you start tracking noise versus signal, you break shit. So it's not necessary. So I said, okay, so what do I need from a watch? I need it to tell the time. I'd like to know the day. I'd like to know the date. These two are unnecessary. But it's it's nice to have. I work overnights, so sometimes I lose track of the day and date. So I said, okay, I've got some watches, right? I've got an F91, I've got an A68, I've got a G-Shock Square, and an MQ24. I have a few cheapo Casios and a G-Shock. And I said, okay, so how much did this Casio cost me? How much was this F91W? It was $20 several years ago. Battery still runs fine. They're rated to last 7 years. My A168 I've had for almost 8 years now. Never replaced a battery on it. The G-Shock, you never had. It's an F5610, solar powered. Theoretically, you'll never have to replace a battery on that. But I said, okay, so if I spend $20 on a watch, and it does everything I need it to do, I could buy 10 of these and they could last me the rest of my life. That's 70 years worth of watches for the same amount that I paid for that Garmin. And it's not going to add a bunch of noise to my life that's completely unnecessary. So that's what I did. I returned the Garmin. Thankfully, I was still within my return period. And I switched back to this. I switched back to this guy. I said, how do I simplify my life? I like watches, but how do I simplify my life? Why do I need extra bullshit? I have other retarded shit that I'd rather spend money on versus a fucking $200 watch. Things that actually enrich my life. So I moved back over to the F91, and dude, I haven't been happier. I mean, I'm happier. It's not, we look at these things that are supposed to add convenience and ease to our life, and they end up making our lives more complicated, and they add more noise than what we need to. And the human brain, unless you're actively looking for signal, voices, noise in your environment, you're going to interpret a lot of the noise that you get as signal. So, you look at a lot of these things that are going into your brain, and the human brain, unless it's specifically looking for it, it has a hard time differentiating between noise and signal, right? Input versus output. So when you have constant small inputs, those inputs might not truly matter, but when you're seeing them constantly, your brain starts to interpret it as signal. So you alter your life in that way. And it's not worth it, dude. Buy a $20 fucking watch. Use this for the rest of your life, or if you're super into watches, whatever, you can start a collection and you can have, the watch box, and you can get into it. I've got some nicer watches, and I'm interested in the mechanical aspects of watches, and I don't mind spending the money on them, or I didn't for a while. Eventually I may get back into it, but at the end of the day, dude, you don't need all this shit feeding fucking bullshit into your brain. Just buy a fucking F91. Throw it on your wrist, and you're good for 7 years. Or spend $100, buy a G-Shock, and you're good for the rest of your life. Or spend $25 and buy an A168. Or do whatever. But what more do you need, bro? Do you really need a heart rate monitor? Do you really need sleep tracking? You don't. No, you don't. And if it's something that you just like to have, just admit that you like to have it. And that's fine, dude. That's totally cool. Like, I understand, if you're just you love having this shit and it feels like just the greatest thing to you, then that's cool, man. I mean, pick it up, dude. Fucking rock your shit. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, it adds a lot of unnecessary noise to your life. So I switched back to the F91. And that's pretty much it. And this was just the video today, guys. It was just a little rant. I hadn't thought about it in a while. This was just a little rant, a little thing for you guys. So, if you watched to the end, I truly appreciate you. Keep in mind that my mango is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody. So please like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to be the guy shilling you products on YouTube going, wow, it's so amazing. This is sponsored, but these opinions are my own. All right, bye, guys.